encore Yves Kenao. C'est toujours Yves Kenao qui revient. Cette fois-ci, pour vous dire que Tempo Afrique TV vous offre plus de 4000 chaînes de télévision. Les chaînes européennes, les chaînes américaines, les chaînes asiatiques, les chaînes africaines. À un prix imbattable. À un prix imbattable. Tenez-vous bien. $185 pour 12 mois, inclus le box. Alors, où est-ce que vous pouvez trouver mieux que ça si ce n'est pas sur Tempo Afrique TV? Mesdames, Messieurs, appelez seulement le 612 804 0295 et vous serez servi. Vous serez agréablement surpris de voir plus de 4000 chaînes de télévision rouler sur votre écran comme ça et vous choisissez laquelle vous voulez. Alors mesdames, n'hésitez pas. N'hésitez surtout pas et ne vous faites pas compter. Prenez votre téléphone, prenez-le tout de suite et appelez le 612, le 804, le 02 95. Nous sommes là, ici à Tempo TV, pour rendre votre vie simple et agréable. Alors, saisissez l'occasion. $185 pour toute une année, pour 12 mois, inclus le box. Quoi de mieux que ça?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another interesting episode of Premium Law Access. My name is Uche Waneri from Premium Law Firm. Last week, I talked to you about different options, about 10 different options of how you can obtain a green card. This week, I am going to tell you about how you can get your green card through marriage, and it has to be a bona fide marriage. I'll also be discussing the red flags. Now, what is a marriage and who can get married? Anybody can get married, and marriage is really a union between two people who love themselves. However, in immigration, you really have to get married to a United States citizen or a lawful permanent resident in order to obtain a green card. If you are planning to obtain your green card from the United States, then you'll have to go through the process called adjustment of status. And that means you ought to have entered the United States lawfully. And what does that mean? It means that you should have entered with a visa, and you should have been inspected and also admitted into the United States in order to benefit from this. So that brings me to my next question. What is a bona fide marriage? And it simply means real marriage, legitimate marriage, legal marriage. However, before you get married, you want to make sure that you have terminated any prior marriage you had. If you do not do that, then it means that any subsequent marriage, any new marriage, will be void. You have to terminate one before you enter into another relationship. It's not unusual for you not to end another, or to get into more than one relationship, but you have to make sure it is properly terminated. And it can be terminated by a divorce or an annulment, but make sure that it is properly terminated before you enter another marriage. So, bona fide marriage. Bona fide marriage, when you have to get into that, you want to make sure that the intent at the time of your marriage is to establish a union that you're planning to live as husband and wife. And you're planning to make sure or to ensure that that is a lifelong relationship, even though sometimes that doesn't really happen. But at least your intent when you're getting married for immigration purposes should not be to obtain a green card or to obtain work authorization or to evade immigration laws. If that is your intent, then immigration is going to decide your case and let you know that your marriage is a fraudulent marriage or a sham marriage. You really do not want this. Now, in terms of marriage, you and your spouse are in love with each other, you get married, you know it's a real marriage. Between both of you, you know it's a real marriage. And if you hire a lawyer, your lawyer may also know it's a real marriage. But the immigration officer will not know it's a real marriage. And you know that one of the process is, in addition to submitting your documents, you should also be attending an interview. So you have to prove during the interview that it's a real marriage. So the intent at the time, the beginning of your relationship, it's very important. I'm not going to let you know, I'm going to give you two scenarios that you should always have in mind when you're getting into a marriage. You should take note of when you start that relationship. When you actually start dating, how long did you date before you got married? Of course, there will be a proposal and then there's a marriage. You have to be aware of the timing of all of us. Also, after getting married, how long or how soon after you got married did you apply for your green card? So if I give you this scenario, assuming Mr. A went to a club and met Miss B, got interested, liked her, and then they exchanged phone numbers, maybe 1st of October. Then by the 3rd of October, Mr. A now tells Miss B, okay, I now want to marry you. And Miss B will say, yes, we can get married. Then a week later, Mr. A is like, okay, we're getting married, we'll get married today. And then maybe the next day, Miss B is already filing for Mr. A. Those are, regarding the time frame, all of this happening within a month. I'm not saying you can't fall in love at first sight, but in the eyes of the immigration officer, it's like things are happening too quickly. Are you sure that this is really a real marriage or a bona fide marriage? So you should be taking cognizance of all these time frames. So in order to prove a bona fide marriage, what kind of evidence are you supposed to provide? What type of evidence are you supposed to submit to immigration? This is really documentary evidence. Well, we already know that you're going to submit, because you're married, you have to submit a marriage certificate. But is marriage certificate alone going to establish a bona fide marriage? No, that's not enough. But that is material. Yes, you should have a marriage certificate. And if you've had a divorce, you should also have a divorce certificate. So when you start to submit your documents, the volume of documents you are going to submit will actually depend on how long you've been married for. So I don't expect someone who has been married for less than 2 years or for less than a year to have the same volume of documents as a person who is married for over 5 years or even 10 years. So that will really depend. So really, what kind of evidence is immigration looking for? So if you're married, it's expected that you should be living together, right? Yes, you should be living together. So where do you live? And the first evidence to show where you live will be your driver's license. So I hear some people, they have different addresses. They move into their wife's or their husband's house, but they still have different addresses on their ID card, their driver's license. And then when it's time for the interview and they're asked a question, they're saying, oh, I'm waiting to renew till the time for my renewal. Well, you don't really have to, because that's the first proof to show that you're really married and you're living together. If you have a lease, it should also reflect that both of you, the names of both of the couple should be reflected on the lease. Now you have utility bills. It is customary for some utility companies, or most utility companies actually, to have utility bills in one person's name and maybe allow the other person as a secondary user or have access to the account. So what do you do? How do you prove to immigration that, yes, you live in the house and both of you maintain the utility bills? Yeah, you can have one person have some of the bills in his name and have the other person have the bills in her name, but make sure that both parties have access to the account. The other evidence will be the assets. Are you commingling your assets? What are your assets? Your assets could be your accounts, your checking accounts, your savings accounts. It's not enough to just open a joint account and say, okay, yes, we have proof that we opened a joint account. It can't be a dormant account. There has to be activity. Even if you have a credit card, there should be activity showing that both of you are actually using those accounts. So it's not enough to just print a statement and say, hey, I have a bank account and a bank statement, and that should be enough. That's not enough to prove that you have a bona fide marriage. So make sure that if you have a bank account, it's an active account, and both of you are using the account to convince the immigration officer. Also, you're going to say, you're going to share responsibilities. And in terms of that, I mean insurance. You can have auto insurance, you can have health insurance, and also life insurance. So all of these should have the names of both parties to show to immigration. So you can get married in October, and a month to your interview date, you now suddenly have documents in the name of both of you, both parties. Immigration will think and say, I don't think this is a real marriage. And you don't want them to have that doubt. So you want to be careful that you're showing them that you're truly married. You're showing them the right documentation to satisfy that purpose. Another piece of evidence is your tax returns. If you've been married for over a year and it was during the tax period, then file your taxes together. File your taxes together and submit that along with your documentation. So these and other documents that will be in both of your names, immigration will look at this and will expect you to submit this documentary evidence along with your application. Now, they are not only relying on documentation by you, because these days they are always they're saying that it's not just the documentation that matters. They also want to hear from third parties, and these third parties could be people who are related to you, your family, your friends, and people who are aware of your relationship. You can get affidavits from them. They attesting to the fact that they know that your marriage is bona fide. They should mention the circumstances in which they came to know you and then why they believe that your marriage is bona fide or is legitimate. So this documentation will help you when you are submitting your application for green card. Now I will go to the next question of, what are the possible red flags? Yes, I'm wearing red today, so maybe we're talking about red flags. So red flags really are what will make the immigration put you under the radar. That means making them pay more attention to your application. And such red flags, I'm going to talk to you about a few of them. The first is age. If the age difference between a couple, it's all huge, that immigration might suspect, are you sure that this is really a legitimate marriage? Then you have to be prepared for this answer. You have to be prepared for this question during your interview. And what this means, it's not unusual, especially in Africa. The men are usually older than the women, and in some other cultures. But when immigration will ask about that, you're not going to say, okay, it happens, it's only an age. You have to prepare yourself and make sure that you're satisfying whatever inquiry the immigration officer has. Also, for women, some women might decide to marry younger men. The reverse is also the case. It's a red flag, and you should look out for that. You should expect that question, and you should prepare for that question so that it's not a surprise to you. The other red flag would be where you live. If you're living in the United States and your spouse is in another country, immigration will want to know how you're maintaining that relationship. The immigration officer, they would like to know how you're maintaining that relationship. So it's not enough for you to say, yes, my wife is not here so that I can't, or my husband is not here so I don't have enough documentation and all that. No, if you're truly married, you still will be finding a way to communicate with each other. So you have to establish this during your interview or during the immigration process. Another red flag will be if both of you are living in the same state and you have different addresses. You'd have to explain to immigration why that is. It's not uncommon for someone working in a different location or actually working in a different state, even when you're married. But again, you have to explain that to immigration. Don't think that that it's an assumption that will be accepted, that they already know that people work in different locations. No, you have to prepare to answer that question. And you have to establish how you're maintaining your relationship, whether or not you're in the same state or not. Now, the next issue will be your tax. If you are married and you start filing taxes separately and you live in the same states, that's another red flag, because immigration would want to know, why are you filing taxes separately? You live in the same house, you live at the same address, you live in the same state, and you're filing taxes separately. So you should come up with an explanation on why that is. It's a red flag. The other red flag might be where you have your life insurance and your spouse is not a beneficiary in that life insurance. Immigration may also want to wonder why. If this is truly your wife, why is your wife not a beneficiary? Or if this is truly your husband, why is your husband not a beneficiary and in your life insurance? So all these and so many other examples for this. Now I have some common questions people usually ask when it comes to filing. People will come and say, oh, okay, I can't open an account because I don't have a social security number. I haven't received my work authorization, and no bank will want to open an account for me. And here is what I tell people. If Bank A does not want to open an account because you don't have a social security number, go to Bank B. If Bank B will not do that, go to Bank C. You might be lucky Bank C may agree to do that without the social security number. Secondly, if you are in the country and you have an international passport, try and get a state ID at least. So this is a form of identification. if that's what you're looking for. Some states, the state IDs don't even expire. But try and get a state ID. It's a form of identification, and the bank will accept that in some scenarios. The other question I receive is, oh, I can't add my husband or my wife to my lease because he has a criminal record. Yes, that happens. And the rental company will not want to put someone, depending on the criminal record, they would not want to add that person to the lease. But I'll advise you, even if they say that, try and get documentation about what they're saying or why they don't want to add your spouse to the lease. In some scenarios, you would have someone, because they don't have a social security or have not built any credit history, they have a guarantor. Make sure you have your name and your husband's name in addition to the guarantor's name. And be willing to explain this to immigration at the time of interview. Some others will ask, I'm the beneficiary and I have a criminal record. That is not good. And in a subsequent segment, I will be addressing that, where you have a criminal record and you are the beneficiary. Yes. The next scenario will be, I'm sorry, my light just went out. Where you're preparing your immigration interview. You're preparing for your immigration interview. So this will also be a different segment. I will be discussing that at a later time. And with this, I have come to the end of this presentation, just giving you tips on how to file. I have a call. Hello?
Yes, hello?
Hello, how are you?
Yes, I'm okay, my honor.
Good.
Yeah, I would like to, ask a couple of questions.
Sure.
Yeah, first question.
Yes.
When the person, coming in the USA and lost his passport, and after that he did not know where he got the passport, how, if this guy get married to American citizen, can he get his citizenship? This is the first question. The second question, you was talking about age. Sometimes you can love a woman no matter what the age might be the case.
Yes.
If you love that woman and you get married, it can be quick and apply to the immigration.
Yes.
Now, I don't know why they can deny it. You love that woman, and there's nothing can separate you between that woman. This is, the second question. The third question, what's gonna be if you want to apply for the fiance? I don't know if it's the I-130. If you want to apply that, what are you gonna put together, and what are you gonna? They're gonna request if you guys have been together more than that.
If you came into the country and you lost your passport, is that it?
Yes.
You lost your passport.
Yes.
Okay. Where did you lose your passport? In the United States?
No, you came from another country.
Okay.
And you
lost
enter
your
in USA.
passport.
And you lost your passport in the
That's
USA.
after entering the United States, you lost your passport.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe after entering the United States, you have lived for a little bit and your passport got lost, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the first question I'll ask you is, you'd have to report to the police.
Okay.
To show that your passport was lost. You have to get a police report.
Okay.
And then you need to apply with that police report, apply to your embassy in the United States for replacement of your passport. Okay?
Yes.
So what your passport does is it shows that you are from that country. So assuming you're from France or from Togo or from Nigeria, that passport will show that this is where you are from. Some countries have ID cards. So that ID card can also help. But the passport shows, one, that you are from that country, and then two, if there's a stamp in that passport, it shows that you came in with a visa. Okay?
Okay.
So all this, it may take longer, but you need to get that process. You have to establish that you entered the country with a visa. Okay? And with that, you can use your I-94 to prove that you actually came in and this was the time allowed for you to enter, to stay in the country.
Okay.
So the next question you had was about age, right?
Yes.
Okay. So like I said, with age and the instances I gave, age is just a red flag. And you can fall in love with someone who's younger, or your wife can fall in love with, or a woman can fall in love with someone who is much younger, or vice versa. So those will come up. They're not saying you should not get married to someone who's younger or someone who is older. I'm just saying that immigration will pay more attention. And what the attention will be for them to make sure that these people are truly married and they're not married for one of them to help the other. So if you are involved in that, all you need to do is you need to prepare yourself. If that question should come up during the interview, then you're prepared to answer that. And you should be prepared whether you're going to be sitting side by side during the interview or you're sitting separately. If they invite you for the interview and later invite your wife, you want to make sure that you're prepared for that question.
Okay.
And that brings me to another fact. Another red flag is where you have multiple marriages. You're marrying one person, you're divorcing, you're marrying, you're divorcing, you're marrying, you're divorcing. All those marriages, immigration is going to be aware of those. They're going to get all those records. If
you're not satisfied, you can divorce that woman. Sometimes the woman can give you her time. You can divorce her and get another marriage.
Yes, they're going to give, exactly. No, they're not saying you should stay in a relationship.
Okay, go ahead.
All they want to make sure is that you're not marrying to obtain a green card. So if you're saying, no, I can't live with this woman, that is it. But you're not living this woman and then 3 months later you're marrying another woman. They will say, okay, where did you meet this new woman? You're just getting out of one relationship and you're already getting married to another person. So immigration will now look, is this marriage for real? They're not interested in your relationship. All they want to make sure is that you are marrying this person for real. And you're not marrying this to help, you're not marrying to help your wife or your wife marrying you to get a green card or get work authorization. That's all they're saying. And that's what you have to prove to them. So the third question, can you remind me of the third question?
It's for fiance I-130. I don't know if it's I-130.
Okay, fiance is not I-130. But if you're saying that you're getting married to your fiance, no, you can't get married to your fiance.
No,
you're just getting engaged.
I want to bring my fiance here.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
So that way, you can call me later, and I can let you know. I have to ask you some questions before we get into that. Okay. But yes, it is possible to bring your fiance. And your fiance, because it's a fiance, you're not supposed to be married. You can bring your fiance, but you will get married on the assurance that both of you plan to get married within 90 days after your fiance gets into the country.
After 90 days, if she comes in the country, right? I'm
sorry?
Okay, I didn't understand that part. If I have a fiance and we have we have been together for like 3 years. But
Okay.
I want to marry her in the USA, but not,
Yes.
in other countries.
Yes. So you go to your home country, you
Right.
get engaged to your fiancé.
Okay.
Okay? You file for her, she gets a fiancé visa. She comes into the country, the United States, with a fiancé visa.
Okay.
Now, the fiancé visa, it's only for a limited period. But what that means is that she's given a fiancé visa. When she comes into the country, she is supposed to get married within 90 days after entering the country on a fiancé visa. If she doesn't, or if you don't, then it means you're going to lose that fiancé visa or fiancé status.
Okay.
Okay?
You say it's 90 days you
I'm
have
sorry?
to get married? That's what you say?
I'm sorry?
No, for the
You have to get
fiance,
married.
if
You
she
have to
came
get
in
married. But I'll
USA,
say,
how long
give me
you need to
I'm
spend
sorry?
to get married?
Yes, you have to get married because it's a fiancé visa. You have to get married after she gets into the country. But give me a call later. You'll see my information at the bottom, and we can talk some more about that. Okay?
Okay.
Yes. All right. So really, you'd want to avoid all of these red flags, and you want to be prepared. Be very careful about, because immigration, they don't have any problem with your relationship. All they want is that they don't want you violating the immigration laws, or you think you're smart and trying to evade the laws. So it really is on you and your spouse to prove to immigration that this marriage is real. And you're not going to say, oh, my marriage is real. I mean, look at us. We're married. This is our marriage certificate. That's not enough. You have to prove to them, not only the documentary evidence, you'll also, during the interview. So in another segment, I will give you tips on how to prepare for your interview and also some other interesting topics. So that is it for today's segment, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you for participating, and as usual, I'll also appreciate your comments, your inputs, and lastly, don't forget to subscribe to Tempo Afrique. That is such a valuable resource for the community, and you'd really want to make use of it. Thank you very much for tuning in, and see you next week. Bye.
C'est encore Yves Kenao, c'est toujours Yves Kenao qui revient. Cette fois-ci, pour vous dire que Tempo Afrique TV vous offre plus de 4000 chaînes de télévision. Les chaînes européennes, les chaînes américaines, les chaînes asiatiques, les chaînes africaines. À un prix imbattable. À un prix imbattable. Tenez-vous bien. $185 pour 12 mois, inclus le box. Alors, où est-ce que vous pouvez trouver mieux que ça si ce n'est pas sur Tempo Afrique TV? Mesdames, Messieurs, appelez seulement le 612 804 0295 et vous serez servi. Vous serez agréablement surpris de voir plus de 4000 chaînes de télévision rouler sur votre écran comme ça et vous choisissez laquelle vous voulez. Alors mesdames, n'hésitez pas. N'hésitez surtout pas et ne vous faites pas compter. Prenez votre téléphone, prenez-le tout de suite et appelez le 612, le 804, le 02 95. Nous sommes là, ici à Tempo TV, pour rendre votre vie simple et agréable. Alors, saisissez l'occasion donc. $185 pour toute une année, pour 12 mois, inclus le box. Quoi de mieux que ça?